Level up your LA Kings experience with the new Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access. Enjoy great seats to the game along with premier dining inside the Lexus Club with all-you-can-eat food and non-alcoholic beverages. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings item and parking with your purchase. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn rewards on each purchase from the only ticket company that rewards you for buying. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings.
You're listening to an LA Kings podcast. For more episodes of this and every other Kings program, visit lakings.com/podcast.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back, Kings fans. I am Jesse Cohen. This is All the Kings Men. We're continuing our summer series evaluating the players taken by the Kings in the NHL Entry Draft. We've got a slightly shorter episode today because I have so far been unable to contact anybody from Saginaw to speak to us about Kristian Epperson. Now, ordinarily I would pivot and try and fill episodes in the meantime while I tried to find someone to talk to, but we've got so many draft picks and free agents to talk about, and there's a running clock on our summer, so unfortunately, for now, we're just forging ahead. We've still got Scott Wheeler and Mark Yannetti on this episode, and fear not, we're a few steps ahead on the entire series at this point, but every summer, there's one prospect or another that, for whatever reason, I struggle to complete the format on. Having said all that, I hope you enjoy the episode. I hope you're enjoying the summer content. And here we go. The next player we're going to talk about, taken in the third round, drafted 88th overall, Kristian Epperson, a.k.a. Crispy. Mark, I've pointed out multiple times that I don't like nicknames, but I do like that one. From the look on your face, it seems like you don't, but I do.
I never heard it. I'll be honest.
I think they mentioned it on the draft telecast, and it caught me off guard. And I was like, "Oh, Crispy! All right, I like that one."
That's fine. That's cool. It's funny. We talked to him for a while. We talked to him a couple times. I never got Crispy. I don't know if I wasn't paying attention or Crispy never came up. That's good, because I would have thought it'd be Epper, which is just dumb.
Well, that's why part of the reason I don't like nicknames, particularly in the hockey world.
Nicknames are dumb.
They're the worst. But Crispy is a nice combination of both names. And, the name that popped out in my mind when the more I read up about Kristian Epperson was Tanner Pearson. And it started out overly simplistic because he's an overage player who shoots left. He's a forward. Then I read about, okay, maybe he might need to work on his skating mechanics. And that's when the Tanner Pearson, chalk outline started to form. And then the more and more I read about it, the more it started to fill in. How far off am I on that comp?
There's some similarities. Both of them especially in their draft year and their draft year +1. I think we got Pearson draft year +2 when the light bulb went off a little later for Tanner. Tanner was, well, I can say it because he's as successful as you possibly can be. Tanner went through the draft simply because Tanner didn't do the things he needed to do off the ice. He didn't do it his draft year. He didn't do it his draft year +1. And then he finally started to think, oh, this thing could be slipping away from me. I better make some changes. And when he made changes, he just, blew up. There's some similarities in terms of they were both behind their peers as a draft eligible physically, and even draft year +1, they were still both behind the peers. Epperson's just built a little bit differently. He's just a little younger body, a little younger build. He's just behind in the development curve. He's doing the things he needs to do in the gym. He still needs to get better at it, but he needs to improve his power. And if he improves his power, like he has an element of quickness to his skating. His short area play, his agility, his ability to adjust quickly, his ability to cover quick, small areas is actually pretty good. He lacks power in his stride, and as such, he can lack a little bit of speed. It's not below average by any means, but it's certainly not a strength. Looking at his skating and looking at Tanner's skating, I didn't see a technical flaw in either skating. So you would assume that with power and maturity will come speed. With Tanner, that was certainly the case. He was one of our faster players by the time he made it with us. So if you look at Epperson, if he can do some of those same things, then the skating will match. I think Tanner had a little bit more natural offense to his game. I think Crispy, as you guys call him,
I
um,
think it's just
he
me.
ha- he has a higher level of compete. There's some agitator in his game. There's some grease in his game. Um, there's some real underlying grit and dirt to his game that Tanner probably didn't, and a lot of guys don't have. It's not an easy thing to have. The similarities then, like, even though I think Tanner's a little bit better offensive player, I mean, this kid complements any line offensively. He complements them not only in some of that work he does, getting to the loose pucks, doing some of the greasy stuff in the corners, winning the battles, winning possession, but then he's got the skill set and the hockey sense to not only just ride as a passenger, but to complement. I mean, he complimented Misa. I can't remember the Russian on the other line was really good too. He complimented both of those players. He enhanced them both with the puck and especially without the puck. So he does have some of those elements that Tanner had as well. I think it's a little bit lesser than Tanner, especially with um, the primary aspect of the offensive game, but it's there. And again, you bring in, he's already got some of that competitive stuff. I think I think most of the issues with him will be taken care of with maturity and him doing the work off the ice. And as I said, he's got some of those harder to find attributes that, as I said, when people are looking at the playoffs, and the playoffs are always fresh at this time of year, you're looking at some of those greasy guys, those gritty guys. He's not necessarily a fourth line grit guy. He could be an upper third line grit guy, and that's a big difference. If you can get your grit and your sandpaper up in the lineup the way Florida does, it's a whole lot better. It changes the dynamic when you're trying to inject grit or some of that stuff into your F11, F12 role. It just doesn't have the impact. So with this guy, if he could play an F8 role, an F9 role, and bring those things he brings, in addition to having good offensive tools, having good sense, having good quickness, and hopefully better speed or even good speed when it's I mean, this guy sees the game really well. He reads off good players well. So if you can inject that grit up into your lineup, you have to be a good player. He's a good player. So as I said, if he can develop some of those other things, you're finding a guy in the draft that can inject grit on a more consistent shift to shift basis.
Michael Misa, obviously one of the top draft prospects in this past draft. Everybody knew that. When you're evaluating a guy who plays with a top tier player, does it complicate the process a little bit where you have to look for maybe different things? Is this guy driving the line, or is he just kind of riding shotgun to this stud kind of thing?
Sure, I mean, again, it's the Kopitar problems a little bit too, right? Like, you got a guy in Kopitar's line. Well, I mean, is he backpacking Kopi? I mean, is he piggybacking on the line? Is he helping the line? So yeah, it certainly complicates it. So you have to. The first thing you do, the kid had 80 points. So you're like, okay, that's good. He's got 80 points. There's something there. Now you got to be mindful. Okay. And again, you can do this live. It's a little easier to do on video, I think, but you can start watching all his goals, all his assists. You can watch his scoring chances. You can watch, I mean, there's a myriad of things you can go back and look at. So you can sit there and say, oh, this kid's just a remore. He's just riding on the belly of a shark. And as soon as it goes to eat, the kid grabs the scraps. Or you could say, oh, gee, you know what? He won that loose puck, put the puck into the slot, and Misa scored. Or, oh, Misa took a shot. This guy jammed through the rebound, took two whacks at it and scored. He made a pass to the weak side. So you start looking at all those things, and don't get me wrong, Misa is a very big reason the kid got 80 points, but he didn't ride as a passenger. He didn't, he wasn't an anchor on the line. He was a contributor on the line, and he wasn't just a contributor without the puck, winning the loose pucks and stuff like that. He was able to contribute, with both sense and skill. As I said, Misa drove the line. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He was the third player on that line, but he was a very good cog in that line.
Couple things, Mark. First of all, I want to say I love the fact that you slipped in a Remora shark relationship metaphor with no feeling of having to explain it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm very curious to know how many people would understand what you were talking about.
It's Shark Week, isn't everybody knows that, right?
I don't know. I love it. Secondly, is that a Stanley Cup represented in stained glass behind you?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
No, a friend of mine, a kid I went to school with, at boarding school, stayed in touch with one of my closest friends. He stayed in touch with him, and this kid, as he got into college later, this kid got into his African heritage and his African roots, and he quit like a really good job to start painting, and he created these unbelievable paintings, like the one behind me, and just through my wife and my friend Sean, just through knowing the kids, thought it would be a cool idea to have him. So they just said, "Hey, listen, he works for LA. They won 2 cups. There's a hockey team." He did some research, and he has this really unique, cool style of painting. Like, it looks like stained glass. It's super cool. So yeah, it's got Kings. I think it even has Dustin. I thought
Brown. I saw a crown, but I couldn't tell. Okay. Yeah. And there's a goalie too.
Yeah, there's goalie too. Yeah, and palm trees and 2. It's wicked cool looking. As I said, the guy's a genius. If anybody wants his artwork, it's really cool.
So I had to know. But getting back to one last thing about Epperson, listed under his under construction / improvements to make, it says protect himself from vulnerable positions. He exposes himself too much on the ice and gets beat up quite a bit. Given how much time you spent talking about his grit and that sort of element of his game, how much of an under construction / improvement is that for him?
Well, I've said people who are gritty and greasy and agitator, and when you add those in, they're going to be in the mix, right? They're going to be in the hard areas. They're going to be in the areas where they hit and can get hit. Certainly he is. He does take some hard hits. I don't know about the getting beaten up thing. I don't know that one. Maybe they just mean getting beaten up through consistent wear and tear. Yeah, he's in it. He's in the mix. He doesn't have any fear. Guys that agitate and guys that like that tend to not have fear. If you don't have fear, you don't think about protecting yourself. You don't think about taking hits. You don't worry about taking hits. So he could be a little bit more aware. But I think for him, it just comes into, he's 6'1", but he's not real big. So it comes into the fact, not 6'1", he's just under 6 feet. Sorry. But he could be 200 pounds instead of 180. You know what I mean? So I think with him, a little bit more awareness will go a long way, but 15, 20 pounds will go even further.
Ever wonder what top athletes eat to perform at their best? Superfood Direct, the preferred catering partner of the LA Kings, is here to fuel your game. For athletes, nutrition isn't just fuel, it's the key to peak performance. Superfood Direct delivers chef-prepared meals that help you build strength, boost endurance, and recover faster. With over 11 years of experience, every meal is balanced with the perfect mix of proteins, carbs, and healthy fats to power you on and off the ice. Ready to fuel your greatness? Visit superfd.com/direct and get 20% off your first order with promo code LA20. That's LA20. The next player we're going to talk about was taken in the 3rd round. We're talking about Kristian Epperson. This is one of the Kings' overage players drafted out of the Saginaw Spirit. Now, you mentioned the Saginaw Spirit earlier, Scott, as one of the premier organizations in junior hockey. How do you feel about overage draftees, just in general? I realize I set up a question and then curved at the end and didn't tie it in at all to the beginning.
I think with how fluid development is, it's common, even with 224, 225 picks every year in the draft, it's common to miss guys, and you cannot rule overagers out, not just at 19, but at 20 as well. And well into, we're seeing college free agents. You talked about Alex Iafallo, and Trevor Moore has been a big part of the Kings organization here, another kid who was undrafted and had to climb the ranks. So I think Epperson has every much a chance to play in the league as any other 3rd round pick in this draft class, and his age is just a part of that calculus. Certainly, when you're measuring his numbers last year, you have to understand them within the context of his age. So you have to understand that he should be further along and he should be more productive than some of his peers and he should be a top player in the OHL at that age. But it's also important that he was those things because not everybody does take that step. And he was a first-line player who played with Michael Misa and Igor Chernyshov, two of the best players and most talented players in junior hockey last year. And there were nights where he was the driver, where he brought those guys into the fight, where he was the guy stirring the drink. Very competitive player. He's got some skill in dirty areas. He'll go to the dirty areas. He'll finish his checks. He's got some bite to him. I think there's some talent there. I mentioned, obviously, Saginaw being a legit organization in terms of developing young players, but so too is where he's now going to college, which is at the University of Denver next year. Obviously, David Carl, we've all heard the David Carl story by now, but David Carl is one of the bright young minds in the game and was recruited this summer for multiple NHL openings as a 35-year-old head coach in college hockey who's already won 2 national titles and 2 gold medals at the World Juniors. So he'll be in good hands under Carl. I expect he'll be a very good college player. And then it's up to him to prove he can be a top college player and to earn an entry-level contract coming out of Denver.
I see his forechecking often lauded when people talk about, what he brings. But the offensive numbers, in the OHL also pretty good. Like on the forechecking, you talk about like bringing people into the game. We hear that a lot about certain players, in the NHL. Like, how much of a strength is that in his game? Like that hunting mentality, is that something that should translate as he progresses into higher levels?
It's definitely a strength in his game. I don't know whether it's a defining quality. There were players in this year's draft that really checked that with emphasis. Brady Martin, for example, who went 5th overall to Nashville. Brady is a dog on a bone, never stops moving, finishes every check, finishes them emphatically, goes after it type of player. Epperson has that in his game. I think it's a little bit more inconsistent at times. He came and went in games this year, so it's not like that's going to be the quality in his game that carries him into the NHL. But will he be, if he makes it into the NHL, will he be a player who gets after it and has a bit of snarl and a bit of bite and isn't shy to play through contact and to get into the mix of things and likes to run his mouth occasionally and that kind of a thing? Yeah, that's going to be a part of his identity. I don't know that it is the be-all and end-all of his identity, but it's a part of what makes Kristian Epperson tick, and he's a pretty unique, almost a bit mercurial prospect. But the talent is there, and there have been really flashes of all sorts of different elements in his game over the years. And now it's about, okay, you go to Denver, you don't have Misa and Chernyshov to play with anymore. There were questions last year as to his consistency and whether he benefited from playing those guys. Now it's up to him to prove to people, to others, like he did to the Los Angeles Kings, that he also made those guys better and that at Denver he can be the guy and he doesn't have to rely on others and he doesn't have to sort of have those questions hang over his head. So that will be really interesting to watch him really test himself under a head coach who I think will get the most out of him in David Carl, and to push himself to become a dominant player at the college hockey level by the time he's a junior or a senior. I don't think it's going to necessarily happen right away for him as a freshman or maybe even a sophomore, but you're playing the long game. Even as an overager with Epperson, you're looking at, okay, at 21 years old, when he's a junior in college, what is he going to look like? And will he by then be a top player at that level, or at least a top player on Denver? And I think that's a very realistic path for him to sort of walk down.
It doesn't happen frequently, but every now and then when I'm reading up about a specific prospect, a name pops into my head. And the more I read, the more the cookie cutter just starts to fill in. And I go, oh, this guy is that guy. And the more I read about Kristian Epperson, the more that Tanner Pearson just kept coming into my mind. Now, I have not watched Kristian Epperson play for a full season. I admit that I have a very strong Tanner Pearson bias. I thought Tanner Pearson was great. Well, great, maybe too strong a word, but I really liked his game. how many similarities are there and how much of this is just in my head?
Well, Pearson's a bit of a bigger guy. Epperson's a strong kid. Like if you guys have seen him around the rink as well, similar to Brustevich, he's not 6'3", but for a 6'1" kid, like he's got some muscle and he looks like an athlete and he's got that side of it figured out. Pearson's a bigger, stronger guy in terms of just that piece of the puzzle. But I think there are some similarities there in terms of what Epperson is working towards. I think you're bang on Tanner Pearson. I think he's sort of the ultimate middle six guy, or was at least during the prime of his career, was the ultimate sort of middle six guy, better than a fourth liner, maybe not quite a true second liner, but could play on a second line kind of player. And I think that's what you're hoping for Epperson, is that he's a guy who can stir the drink a little bit, chip in and contribute offensively in the middle six, and also has, not that he's a super, super hard player, but has some hardness and some competitiveness to him.
It started super simplistically with overage forward, drafted left, shooting left, 19 years old, who needs to work on his skating. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds an awful lot like Tanner Pearson. And then I started hearing the stuff about, first guy into the corners keeps the play alive. And I was like, well, that's 100% Tanner Pearson. And then, just the more I read, now, probably a bias on my part for thinking, oh, he's an overage forward who needs to work on his skating, so therefore he's Tanner Pearson. But the more I read, the more I just felt like that was the guy. But listen, if he has Tanner Pearson's career, I think we'll all be perfectly happy with that.